particular type of bamboo. You want to talk about being specialist. If that bamboo is not present, and that's actually one of the reasons I'm glad you said the word extinct. A lot of these specialist species, if the bamboo is gone, and we remove all the areas where that bamboo is in their natural area, they're gone. And you're going to get animals going extinct. Yeah.
Why is that all they eat?
Because they're picky.
Like, why can't you eat anything?
That's just, as I guess evolution is a general term, but that is all they feed on. Now, there's the possibility that as bamboo runs out, that they may adapt and start to have something else, but you're not guaranteed that.
Trees.
I mean, that's with any animal. If they adapt quick enough, then it can survive. Oftentimes with specialist species, it doesn't happen. You know, that's like asking a fish that needs a pH of 7, suddenly someone pours acidic water in there, saying, well, why did you need the 7? Why can't you adapt and live in lemon juice? It doesn't happen. And this is more particular. And the reason why it's hard for us to understand it is because we are generalist species, and we eat pizza, and we eat plants, and we eat meat. We live in all sorts of regions. We're generalists, so it's hard for us to even understand, well, why can't they just eat other stuff?
I guess if you were vegan, you would understand a little better. If you were vegan, you could understand a little better.
Yes. But even if you were vegan, you didn't need to be vegan. See, this is a little bit of a different situation. Now, lastly, there is another example. Remember, I told you I want you to try to remember a couple of examples of particular terms. Generalist, a cockroach is a great example, or mice. Specialist, not only is a giant panda one, but koala bears, they only eat eucalyptus leaves. If something happens to the eucalyptus leaves, you're going to have an extreme decline in koala bears, yes.
Would a mosquito be an example of a specialist since it only takes blood?
But there's blood everywhere.
From multiple animals. I would call it a generalist because mosquitoes live in all sorts of environments. And that's, I mean, one thing you will learn, some of these terms too, there is some overlap and some gray area, especially when we get to population. I'll explain a little later in the next unit. But you got to look at the other types of things too, other types of conditions, pH and solar activity and all those types of things. Yes.
So is that why there's such like an issue if we take like a panda and put it in the zoo because that's not their natural habitat?
Part of the issues with putting them into containment like that is, I mean, they're still feeding their natural food,
Mm-hmm.
so that's still good for them. But now they're in containment, and it's harder for them to breed because it's not natural. So a lot of it, when you contain them like that, they're not going to act, and their behaviors will be different. They become slightly more docile, and they can never then return. So you lose them in the natural environment to play their role. Part of the term niche, and I want everyone to hear that. I know some of you guys tune me out occasionally as I'm talking, and I get it. I've been in lectures before. Every organism provides something called an ecosystem service. Their service is the role that they play for everything else. It's like their job, okay? And so you take them out of the wild and you put them into a zoo. Now that wild environment doesn't even have them there to function in that role, and you can never put them back there. The mosquito, it has an ecosystem service. It does something. It provides a service to all the other organisms. Okay, so that's kind of going back to that term niche. Species interactions. I don't want you to have to memorize commensalism. I don't think you will see it. The reason I like this one, and I have a note in my PowerPoint underneath this. This is the black walnut tree. And this talks about an interaction where two species where one suffers and the other is not affected.
That's the worst scenario.
You know what this tree does? It releases a chemical around it, so nothing can survive.
My God.
That's awesome.
What's
That's
it
like
called?
me.
Black walnut.
Okay, but here's the reason. It wants all the resources, and so what does it do? It drops a chemical so nothing around it can survive. So all the other plants suffer and die. All right?
Everything.
So we don't need to memorize commensalism, but this is one we used to
We could
talk
do
about.
that.
But we will focus on
Comical.
these. Commensalism. You guys learned about this in the IRG, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to memorize, and what I told you before is I want you to remember a couple of examples. Now, I used to focus on knowing these specific terms. I don't think you need to. Let me just explain to you, though, if you were to be in an ecology course, you would probably learn the specific types of commensalism. Commensalism is where the two species, one benefits and the other's not affected. That's the best way to go about it. Okay, at least you're not killing off the other thing, but one is benefiting. 4C is this idea of transportation. Have you seen this before? If you've ever watched, the deep sea ocean videos and stuff, where basically they're feeding off the side of the shark. The shark's really not affected by that, and they're getting, not only are they getting protection, but they're getting some food. The protection is they're hanging out with the shark.
What about the one where it's like they clean the shark's teeth and then...
That is a mutualistic relationship. It's, in some areas, again, there's kind of a gray area, because some would say, well, isn't he benefiting somehow? Commensalisms where really one is just completely not affected. Okay? Inquilinism, that's just a cool word. That's providing housing. Okay? There are some situations, granted this tree is dying, there are some situations where a tree is providing housing for a bird. You guys have seen bird nests before, right?